There are 6 races total on Blox routes, and in this video, we're going to be ranking them all in a tier list to find out which one is the best. There's going to be 2 lists, one for V3, one for V4, and we're going to be judging each race on 3 categories. How cool it is, the abilities and buffs they come with, and lastly, how hard it is to obtain. And we're starting off with the most common race in the game, human. Apart from being the most common race, it's also the most basic. I mean, there's literally no physical changes to your body with this one, and I believe you even have a 62.5% chance of just spawning as a human when you create a new account. So as far as obtainment goes, this is the easiest race to get in the game, but is the V2 and V3 good? Now V1 for this one has no physical base changes, unlike some of the other races. However, for V2, you get extended distance with your flash step. For example, you can go this far right here, and no other race can do that, and you get 1 extra dodge when you activate observation hockey. So I'm not gonna lie, for V2, that's actually not that bad, but for V3, that's when it starts going downhill. If you look down at the bottom of the screen, we have a skill called Last Resort, and this is our V3. It's a pretty simple ability that only does one thing. The lower in health you are, the higher damage you deal. Yep, not that exciting, I know. Now this V3 can be useful in certain situations, specifically PvP, because it has a maximum damage increase of 52.25% damage, but in order to reach that, you need to be dang near dead. Also, just to give y'all an example of how much damage it increases, this is what I deal in base, 2,564 with base M1s, but when I'm low, this is how much damage I deal, 3,182 per M1, and I think it could have went higher. So the buff is there, you get a significant damage increase, but this one is not that cool, it's not that useful for low level players, and it's just not that versatile. So for that, human V3 is going straight in the meh tier. Human mains, don't come at me. Next up, we have the Mink race, and if you spawned in with this one, consider yourself a lucky person, because you only have a 12.5% chance of spawning in with it on a new account. Now, unlike human, this one actually does have some base buffs without even doing V2 or V3, and it's that Minks have a 1.5 times speed multiplier over other races. So I'm pretty sure y'all can guess what the Mink race is all about. It's all about speed. And the cool thing about this race is you actually have some physical attributes. You guys can see we have some bunny ears, and later on down the line, when you upgrade it to V2 V3, you get a tail and whatnot. So unlike human, this is winning in cool points, but what does V2 and V3 do? For V2, it increases your base run speed to 2 times multiplier, and also increases the distance of your dash and reduces the amount of energy it takes. This makes it really good for long PvP battles, especially if you're sky camping. You won't be using much energy by dashing. Now for V3, you might have guessed, we have an ability called agility, and it's pretty obvious what that is. When you press it, you have a 4 times speed multiplier, which lasts for 6.5 seconds, and it allows your dashes to go even further as well. I also want to point out the V3 on Mink is actually super easy to get. You just need to collect 30 chests and you get it. Overall, Mink is a pretty good race. It's actually one of my favorite races, but for V3s alone, I'm gonna have to put it at good, just barely above human, because the main thing it really excels at is PvP, and if you're lower level and leveling up, it's just not gonna benefit you that much. There's gonna be other races that are gonna help you out a lot more. Up next, we have the shark race, and this is where things start getting interesting. So first off, just like Mink, you also only have a 12.5% chance of spawning with this, and just like Mink, you get some cool features, like you get this little fin right here, which shows you're a fisherman. Now, as a sharkman, you do get some base buffs before you even upgrade it to V2 or V3, and that is when you're a devil fruit user and you go in water, the damage is significantly decreased. Now, normally, if you're a devil fruit user and you go into the water, you start dying instantly. However, with shark, it negates that, which ties into the race's V2, which makes you completely immune to damage from water. Like you guys can see, I'm just not taking no damage at all, and you get faster swim speed. Like, look at me, I'm Michael Phelps and it out over here. This makes this race extremely sought after, especially if you're going to be doing sea beast farming or any sort of sea event farming. It's literally the best race to do with that. But it gets better, trust me. For our V3 ability, if you look down, we have this ability called Water Body, and this is what it looks like. And what it does is it decreases the damage you take by 65% for 6 seconds. This makes it insane for both PvP, because you're going to negate combos that would have been one-shots that are now not one-shots, and grinding, because let's say you're about to die to a boss, you pop Water Body, and now you're not going to die anymore. Couple that with the fact that you can't drown as devil fruit user and you swim really fast, this makes this honestly one of the best, if not the best, V3s in the game. That said, this is one of the harder V3s to get in the game, because you have to defeat a sea beast in order to upgrade it from V2 to V3. All things considered though, as far as V3s go, I'd be a fool if this was anything other than godly. Like, y'all can't argue with that. And now we have the last natural race you can spawn as in the game, and it is Angel. Same rarity as Shark and Mink to spawn as, 12.5%, and this one actually has wings to signify that you're an angel. Definitely the coolest looking one out of all the base races in my opinion. Now, one of the boosts you get for being an angel in base form is you get longer jumps, which I don't really notice them that much, or I guess you have to double jump, I don't know. It's pretty useless, but it's there, it's a boost nonetheless. Now the V2 for this one is pretty similar to the base. It's not that useful. Basically what it is when you air jump, your first air jump goes higher distance than normal, and you also get an extra air jump. So instead of only having 10, you get 11. Not saying that's completely useless, but definitely the V2s for some other races are better. Now you're probably thinking this race is isn't that good right now, right? Well, you'd be wrong, because the V3, it starts heating up quick. The V3 skill we get with this one is called Heavenly Blood. And hold on, let me get low real quick so y'all can see just what this does. When I activate it, look at my health. It gives me 20% regen, 10% energy regen, and also just natural regen increasing. You guys can see right there, I went from like 3,000 health to 6,000 in seconds. This makes it very sought after in both PvP and grinding, because literally with this ability, you get a ton of health regen and energy regen. And on top of that, this has the lowest cooldown for any V3 in the game, being only at 20 seconds, so it is pretty spammable. And to obtain the V3, it's actually not that hard. All you need to do is just defeat another Angel player, which is kind of weird, kind of racist. I don't know, man. All things considered, though, Angel has to go at great. I mean, the ability to heal like that and regen is insane. Now, these next two races are a little different. You cannot spawn on them naturally. You have to obtain them through a quest line or doing certain things. And the next one we're going to be rating is the Cyborg race. Now, this one is both very hard to obtain and it costs money. Every time you want to go back to it after you've obtained it, you got to pay 2,500 fragments, which is kind of crazy. As far as looks go, this is pretty cool. You get a cool little face mask here, which only looks like this because it's V4. It will look different in V3 and V2. But before we get into what this race actually does, let's talk about the obtainment process. This, hands down, is the most difficult race to obtain in the game. To get it, you got to complete a quest called the Cyborg Puzzle, and let me just give you a quick rundown. First things first, you need to get a Fist of Darkness, which for those of you who don't know, you only have a 1% chance of getting from a sea beast, or you have to wait 4 hours to get it from a chest. Then what you have to do is you have to sacrifice that Fist of Darkness into a machine. Then what you have to do after that is fight the Order boss or Law boss, and you need to get a drop from them called Core Brain. And this is where the issues start, because Core Brain has like a 2.5% drop chance, so good luck with it. Now, me personally, it took me days to get this race, so I doubt any low level is going to be able to get it, but let's see if this race is worth it. So first off, in base, you get nothing. There's no physical boosts or passives or anything in base. However, in V2, this is where this starts getting a little interesting. Now, since we're a cyborg, we're technically a robot. We have 10% damage reduction against melee, swords, and guns. Not only that, in V2 for cyborg, 15% of all the damage we take gets converted to energy. So we have constant energy regain, which if you're a hybrid build for PvP, this race is the most sought after you need. Now, this is cool and all. I mean, those buffs and stuff are good, but V3 is where this race excels. We have this ability called Energy Core, which when you use it, it gives you a lightning ore, which damages nearby enemies. For me, it does a maximum of 5,304 damage. However, if you're lower level, it'll do less. Now, Energy Core doesn't only deal damage, though. It also gives you a 30% defense boost for the 6.5 seconds it lasts, and it breaks Ken, making this V3 one of the best ones for both PvP and grinding. You get a defense boost and you get extra damage, and you can use this whether you're being attacked or you're the one attacking, which is insane because that means some one-shot combos that people are using on you will no longer be one-shots, and combos you use can now be turned into one-shots using Energy Core. Now, honestly, it's fire. Hey man, some of y'all may disagree with this, but as far as V3 goes, I gotta put Cyborg up in the same tier, man. This thing is godly. And now only one race remains. Let me go ahead and teleport over to the haunted ship. This NPC right here, Experiment, is the one that gives you Ghoul race. Luckily for this one, you don't have to pay to change to it again. Now, the obtainment process for Ghoul is not as difficult as Cyborg. I mean, you can get it a lot quicker, but it is tedious. In order to get it, you need 100 ectoplasm, which is easy. You'll probably get that naturally just by grinding at haunted ship. But the next thing you need to get is an item called Hellfire Torch, which is a 5% drop from a raid boss called Cursed Cap. That is the difficult part, because to even get Cursed Captain to spawn, he only has a 1 out of 3 chance to spawn every night. And on top of that, the Hellfire Torch is only a 5% drop, so as you can imagine, that is very annoying. Now, unlike every other race in the game, Ghoul actually has some interesting attributes. Since it's kind of like a vampire race, we get boosts and passives during night. For example, in your base form, you get 30% faster speed during night. You guys may not be able to notice it right now. I mean, it's not that big of a difference, but it's there. Another thing with this race, also following the vampire theme, is it has life leech. When you unlock the V2 for this race, it makes it to where 5% of the damage you deal to NPCs, it converts back to your health. Except this is 25% on players. So let me get low real quick. You guys can see my health is down to 7,000 right here. Let me deal some damage. You guys can see my health is starting to increase little by little. The more damage I deal, the higher I go up. Also, keep in mind, if you're fighting a player, it'll go up at an even greater rate. So that V2 is pretty good, I'm not gonna lie, but the V3 is where everything is at. We have heightened senses, and this one, it does quite a bit of things, I'm not gonna lie. So just to go down the small list of things it does, it increases your damage by 5%, increases your speed by 10%, and defense by 15%, but it also does this. When you use your V3, use a skill, you're able to use it while it's still at 40% cooldown. So you guys can see my Heaven Earth right now, right? I just used it. Now I'm able to use use it again, even though the cooldown never finished. Which makes this a peak race for both PvP, because you can extend combos that normally wouldn't even be possible, and for boss farming, because you'll just be able to use your moves, obviously, earlier than usual. No matter how you look at it, man, the Ghoul race is very good, having good passives during night, and the V3 ability and V2 ability just being overall very good, and it gets even better with V4 later, which I'm excited to show you. As for where it should be placed, though, it's got to go great, and I'm going to put it above Skypiea. Maybe a bit controversial, but this is the V3 tier list. We have Human and Meh, Mink and Good, Ghoul and Skypiea and Great, and Fishman and Cyborg at God. But next up, we have V4. Now, first of all, V4 is a transformation that every race gets, and when you activate V4, every single stat becomes max. As you guys can see, we have all max stats. Not only that, we get 10% speed increase, damage increase, and heal regen. And as far as like coolness factor goes, I just want to say Human V4 is definitely got to be like top tier coolness. I mean, sheesh, look at that pose, bro. Now with Human V4, one of the two abilities is called Psycho, and as you guys can see, it is 3 bars down at the bottom, and what these are is flash steps. You get 3 of them, and they make you invisible and make it to where your moves have hyper armor, so they can't be interrupted. And for our second skill, it's called Limit Break. Now, as you may notice, there's a number down at the bottom below, and what this is, it's a meter. When you take damage or deal damage, it goes up. You guys can see right here, this goes up to a maximum of 100, and when it's at 100, your damage is increased significantly, which scales with Human V3. You guys can see it's now almost at 100, which is the maximum I can get. It'll be 150 if you have this gear upgraded. And you know what? Let me just show y'all the damage difference. So this is the damage I deal in base V4, 2,820 per M1. However, this is the damage I deal when my meter's at 80. 3,902 damage. Like, this is actually insane, and I'm not even using Last Resort V3. With V3, I deal 4,595, and I was only at 78 bars. So as you guys can see, Human V4 is all about damage, and it is insane. High mobility with all the dashes too, which makes your moves uninterruptible. Like, this is just a really good V4. Overall, for Human V4, I'm gonna have to put it at good, just because I think there are other V4s that are more OP. But I'm not saying Human V4 is bad, don't get me wrong. You know, for the next one, we're gonna switch it up. We're gonna decide which one we're gonna rate next on this wheel. And we are doing Cyborg next. Okay. Now with Cyborg V4, boys, I ain't gonna lie, this one may have Human V4 beat in aesthetics. The 2 skills we get are simple. We get a super jump now, you guys can see, which really helps, and there's even a glitch you can do with it, which makes this faster than the fastest race in the game. And next up, we have one of the most OP abilities when it comes to V4. We have this ability where every bit of damage we deal chains to nearby enemies. Not only that, you guys can see there's an electrifying effect on every attack, which bricks can't. Now to demonstrate this chaining ability, let me show you over here. I'm gonna hit this NPC, and it hits both of these NPCs nearby, and it can stack to as many players there are. I'm now hitting every single person in the area just by hitting one of these people, and all attacks apply the little electrifying effect, by the way, which breaks can't. This makes this honestly one of the best races for dealing with teamers, because it forces them to separate. And let me just give y'all an example of what it would look like if you were getting bum rushed by teamers. You guys can see all these NPCs right here, right? I hit them once, it transfers to everybody. And you use V3, and you're just dealing tons of damage. Use any AoE abilities, it's GG's, bro. It's GG's. And not only is this good for teamers, this is also good for boss farming, grinding, just anything in general. This is the best race when it comes for grinding mastery. Similar to the V3 rating, Cyborg can't go anywhere other than godly, in my opinion, man. Like, I'm just not gonna argue with y'all on that. Let's see which race we get next. Let me buy a change race real quick. Oh, Shark. Okay. I have a feeling this one's gonna get a lot of people mad. For Shark V4, we have 2 simple abilities. First one being this little shark that's floating around me, you guys see here. It gives me a shield which reduces the damage I take by up to 80%. For example, if I get hit by this guy right here, I'm taking 0 damage to my health right now. And this V4 skill can also be stacked with V3, giving you 100% reduction for a short period of time. You guys can see right now, I'm virtually taking 0 damage right now. Like, this is actually insane. And as for the second V4 ability, whenever you hit somebody, it applies a little slow effect, which the more you hit them, the slower they get. You guys can see there's like a little water aura around him. Let me hit him again. Now there's a bigger aura around him, and he's heavily slowed. Keep hitting him, and it'll keep applying even more slows on him. Both of the V4 skills with Shark V4 makes this honestly one of the most annoying ones to deal with, because not only can they slow you, they can pretty much negate most of your damage, rendering your combos useless. Now, considering all this, you're probably gonna think this is a godly race, right? Well, I'm gonna disagree. For this one, we're gonna put it in great, and I already know y'all are down in the comments, commenting below, raging, but let me explain. The shield with Shark V4 used to be a lot better. It got nerfed recently, and ever since then, a lot of the pros have been realizing it's not as good as it used to be. Still a great V4 nonetheless, don't get me wrong, there's no disputing this is not bad in any way whatsoever, but with the severe lack of mobility and the fact that the shield is not as good as it used to be, in my opinion, I think Cyborg and some of the other ones are better. I already know some of y'all gonna be upset by that, but next up we have Angel V4. Look at this, boys, look at this. This man standing there like he's a god. Got the little halo above your head, got the 4 wings, and the 2 abilities for this one are simple. 1, you can now glide by holding Q. You can fly up, you can fly down really quick, or you can just straight up levitate by holding space. These abilities are really cool. This makes this great for running, air camping, doing whatever. No one's gonna catch you if you just run away like this. Trust me, I've tried to fight Angel V4 users. It's tough, but this is not where it excels. You guys can see this ore on the ground around me. If I stand near somebody, it forces them to their knees, makes them kneel, stuns them, and distorts their screen, and does damage. By the way, this also interrupts combos. So essentially, Angel V4 pretty much negates any fighting style, weapon, or sword that forces them to be close to you. They're not going to be able to do combos because you can just stun them like that. This makes Angel literally one of the best in cheese races for PvP. Interrupt people's combos, start your own combos, fly away if you need to if you get low, spam B3 to regen health. Like, if you don't think that's OP, I don't know what's wrong with you. So I ain't gonna lie, man, Skypian is going godly and it's going above Cyborg. I ain't arguing with nobody on that. Only 2 races left to rate in the game, boys. We're almost done. And next up, oh, I got Rabbit first try. I'll take that. Here is what Mink V4 looks like, boys. And in terms of coolness, it is not much different than the other one. I mean, we got a longer tail. We had like decent cool pose. So yeah, in terms of aesthetically, it's not much different than the base, but let's see what the skills are. So first off, your run speed is increased more, and the first ability is called Whirlwind. Whenever you dash, it leaves a little tornado behind, which stuns and deals damage to your enemy. This can actually be pretty good for farming and PvP. The damage is not like that good, but for PvP, it has some good stun, which can allow combo potential. You know what I'm saying? Trip up your opponents like that. And if you upgrade it to the second gear, if you hold Q, you get a little super dash. This makes it pretty good, I'm gonna be honest. Like, you can get away from opponents very quick. Couple that with V3, look at it. I'm zooming right now, boys. Now that was the first skill. It's pretty cool, you know, with the whirlwind and the super dash, but the second skill, it's a bit lame. All the second skill does is make your dashes go further. Yep, that's it. That's all it does. Just make your dashes go further. So I'm not gonna lie, Mink V4, it doesn't really do much other than give you speed. I mean, the whirlwind's pretty cool, the super dash is pretty cool, but I mean, let's be honest, that's just not as good as some of the other V4s. And let me just say, there's a reason why every single skilled pro player uses Mink. It's because it gives the least advantages out of all the other races. Don't get me wrong, the speed advantage is really good for 1v1s, but if you're getting teamed, it's not that good, and this ain't gonna help you much in farming either. So even though Mink is the race that I main and use the most, I'm gonna have to say for the V4, it's honestly probably the worst one in the game. But don't get me wrong, every single V4 in this game is good, so even though I put it in meh, you could still use it and be perfectly fine. Don't misunderstand what I'm trying to say. And now we have the final race we're going to be rating in the game, V4. Ghoul once again. Now, Ghoul V4 is definitely the most emo out of all of them. I mean, look at this, bro. I literally just like darkness. Man, I think he Batman or something. Anyways, the skills for Ghoul V4 are pretty straightforward. The first skill is called Blood Siphon, and it makes it to where every single attack now has health regen or life steal. Let me just get low real quick. You guys can see I'm low now. I'm hitting them, and now my health is going up at a pretty good rate. Look at my health just zoom up right now. Sheesh. The Blood Siphon skill alone, I'm not gonna lie, makes this a very good race for fighting teamers, players, bosses, whatever, because like you're gonna be constantly regaining health at a fast rate, and it's gonna be tough to kill you. But the second skill is where this really excels. The second skill is called Domain Expansion. As you guys can see right here, this is my domain. I'm not gonna lie, Domain Expansion actually does a lot of things. First of all, anyone that steps in my domain is slowed, blinded, and they can no longer health regen while inside of it. Number 2, I also get these crows around me where whenever I dash, they attack a nearby player, and that's not even all, boys. Every single night passive that you get with Ghoul now becomes available during day, and cooldowns are reduced by 40%, which you can stack with the V3 to be able to spam your moves even quicker than you would be able to before. This is actually an insane V4. Life steal, the blinding, the crows, the reduced cooldowns, it's insane. Pair Ghoul V4 with something like Kitsune, and it's gonna be a nightmare, I promise you. Honestly, one of the most underrated races in my opinion. For as OP as it is, I really don't see much people using it. But everything you get in Ghoul, I'm not gonna lie, it can't be anything other than godly. And you could argue it may even be better than Cyborg. But ladies and gentlemen, that is our complete list of V3 and V4 races. Let me know what y'all think about this. I try to be as objective as possible, but of course, if you disagree, let me know down in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed these tier list videos, make sure to click on this other one I did here.